Hi, I'm Janine Nodder. I'm a state representative serving the town of Merrimack. And yes, I'm running for re-election. The highest ranking elected official in the New Hampshire House of Representatives is the Speaker of the House. His name is Sherman Packard, and he is the guest in this special edition of Chattin' with Janine. The show will now come to order. Welcome, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Janine. It's a pleasure being here.
You may hold that, and you can gavel me if I get out of line at any time during the taping today.
Okay, all right. I'll slam your hand, you know.
I'm honored to have you here, and thank you for coming to Merrimack.
My pleasure, Janine.
And I thought we would start the show off with a look back of this past term and the term before, and how our term started and how you became Speaker. And I thought it would be nice to have a little slide presentation. So Justin, the cameraman, is going to start rolling these photos, and we can talk about them. So there I'm sitting with Dick Hinch, who was the Speaker of the House. We were in the minority that term, and that was a session that lasted until 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So you had just stepped out when somebody took that picture. And I'm holding the flag because that was my signal on what the Republican position was. When it was no, I waved that flag.
An awful lot of no's that session.
Yes, that's how, I mean, our green buttons just didn't work. Oh, and there's Steve Smith, the current Deputy Speaker of the House. And there we are at 4 a.m. There's Representative Al Baldessaro, yours truly, Dick Hinch, and Sherman Packard. This was just a fun picture. It was outside the State House, and that's the National Committee man, Chris Ager, and Dick Hinch, and then photobombing there is Steve Negron.
Okay. I wasn't quite sure who that was.
This was taken a couple of years ago. Governor Sununu came to Merrimack, and he was on my show that day. And this is significant because it was on that show that I had him tell the viewers once and for all who was responsible for taking down Exit 11. And he could tell you it was Dick Hinch. The media keeps giving credit to other people, like the former state senator, but that's not true. It was Dick Hinch in a private meeting who talked to the governor, and that was how we got rid of Exit 11. So thank you, Dick Hinch and Governor Sununu. This is, on the other side of Dick Hinch, there is Deborah Childs, and she is your...
Deputy Chief of Staff.
And she does a fabulous job, so big shout out to her.
She's incredible.
There's the four of us, Kim Rice, who's the Speaker Pro Tem, and then that's you, and then me, and Dick Hinch again. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is from that session that went till 4 a.m. I'm not sure what time this picture was taken, but we were all getting pretty tired at that point, except for Al. He looks pretty happy there. And behind Dick Hinch is Fred Doucette, who, let's see, he is a Deputy Majority Leader, I believe.
Yes.
This was the last time that Dick was on my show. So you're sitting in the seat where he was, and I just took a screenshot of that. This is the day that he was given the gavel. It was very cold that day. We were outside because it was during COVID.
And it was a field hockey field over in UNH. And it was about 40 degrees that day, yes.
And he got very sick and he couldn't get warm, and we lost him 10 days later.
Yeah, he should have had a heavy overcoat on. So
I picked that up from your office when it came in, and I was able to deliver that to his family. And this is a flag that was made by a veteran who lives in Merrimack. Well, he's since moved. It's got the Navy seal, and I believe that's hanging in your office.
That is hanging in my office. Once you informed me that it was done, and Pat had it, you brought it up there, and we have it hung in the office, and it'll stay there. As long as I'm Speaker, it's going to stay there.
And there's my two favorite speakers, Sherman Packard and Dick Hinch. That's a beautiful picture of the State House at night. Somebody had it on Facebook and I borrowed it. I don't know who took the picture.
It is a good one.
And there you are with the former president of Poland, Lech Walesa. Yes.
And he's the former president of Poland. He's the one that started the Solidarity movement that brought down the Soviet Union, and he also won the Nobel Peace Prize.
So I was very excited to meet him because when I was in high school, I heard his name almost daily, and I just wished I still had parents so I could tell them, Mom and Dad, I got to meet him. I got to meet Lech Walesa. There he is again. He had a big smile on his face.
Yeah, it's something that doesn't happen too often, where you get somebody of his magnitude to address a joint session of the legislature. That happens very rarely, but somebody of his stature in his accomplishments in life were just incredible, and we were fortunate enough that he was in the state and we could get him to come and address us at a joint session.
So I was just going through the pictures I had on my phone before the show today, and this was the only one I could find with you at the podium. So it's not a close-up, but there is another speaker there, the speaker from last term. And speaking at the well is Representative Terry Roy of Deerfield. And then we have the clerk as well. So the three representatives there are with you and the president of former president of Poland. They're all of Polish descent, and they very much wanted to meet him. So,
as am I.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Because I heard you speak to him, and I think you said something in Polish to him. And there you are. There's another picture of you. See, you're just right there. You can very clearly see you. And over in the red in the front row, I'm there somewhere. Look for the blonde head. I sit in the front row there. This is the majority office, the speaker's office, and our wonderful staff. This is House leadership. And I had it's an honor to work with these guys in the majority office. So thank you for letting me be the whip. And those herding cats, there you go. These are your kids.
Yeah, Deborah did great putting that together.
So we're up there in the balcony. You're in the center, and I'm off to the right. I think that's the last photo. Is that right? Okay. All right. So are we at the 167th state legislature? Wow. It's coming to a close, and it was only natural to want to reflect back and remember Dick Hinch. So he'll have gone, but he'll never be forgotten.
No, he won't. He and I became the most dearest of friends. We spent literally a whole year traveling the state of New Hampshire, going to every event possible. And I know you were at some of them, and our current majority leader was at some of them. But Dick and I sometimes were out 4 or 5 nights a week going to different events. We didn't care where it was. If there was an event going on, we did everything we could to attend it. And a couple of times we even got lost, leaving some events. But it was a wonderful time in both our lives. I think we solved the world's problems 100 times over when we were sometimes on those trips of an hour and a half, 2 hour ride one way to get to someplace. But Dick was very, very, very dear to me.
And he's from Merrimack.
And he was from Merrimack, yeah.
So it must be hard to follow in his footsteps, but I think he would be proud of the job that you did as Speaker.
It was, you never want to, when you're that close to somebody, you never want to take over because of the circumstances that happen. Mm-hmm. But once the circumstance happened, then we had to move forward.
So you pretty much kept the whole ship running the way Dick wanted. You know,
Yeah, we had, he had picked his chairman and his vice chairman, and basically, a couple of minor changes, but his leadership team, and I was technically the deputy speaker at the time, and we had picked it, and pretty much everything was set as far as that goes when we found out he had passed away.
yeah. So this next term, I'm assuming you'll be elected Speaker of the House again because we're going to have the majority again.
Yes, we are.
I know, and
On a larger majority than we had this time.
you'll make a few changes because
There'll be some changes. Yeah, I mean, a lot of our chairman and vice chairman actually aren't coming back.
right.
A lot of them are running for the Senate seats. So there'll be a pretty good turnover in chairmanships, and obviously there'll be some other changes made. So, but overall, the top leadership team that we have has been so successful, considering the short amount of the numbers we have. Looking back in history a little bit, we believe it's the smallest majority of any time in the history of the House.
It's amazing that we were able to accomplish as much as we did with such a slim majority.
We accomplished a tremendous amount.
It's been a group effort. It took all of us together to make it work.
And that's what was so great about the team we put together, is that everybody worked, and we were able to accomplish some amazing things this year.
Well, let's talk about some of those accomplishments. I see we both have a list. Fiscally responsible spending. We balance the state budget.
Well, I mean, the first thing was we obviously we balanced the state budget, but what we also did was we cut a tremendous amount of taxes. We cut the business profits tax.
That was my bill.
We cut the business enterprise tax. We cut the rooms and meals tax. And then we're phasing out the entrance and dividends tax, which many seniors were moving out of the state because they were retired and they were living off that interest and dividends, and we were taxing it, where quite a few other states don't. Now, granted, some of those other states have, income taxes or sales taxes, but we were losing some of our seniors because of that. And after we passed the repeal of it, a number of seniors, have let us know that they plan on staying in the state now. So it did make a difference, and it was the right thing to do. Those were the major taxes we passed. Now, we also refunded close to, we sent back to the cities and the towns close to $400 million in different, for property tax relief. And the biggest one was to the statewide property tax, where we sent back $100 million to the cities and towns to reduce the SWEP fund by $100 million.
And what is the SWEP fund?
That is the statewide education property tax. And so what we did is it was, I think, $354 million that was supposed to be collected by the cities and towns. And what we did is we told the cities and towns, because we put the $100 million into it, you only had to collect $254 million. So it was an actual direct correlation to the property tax relief. It wasn't given out to the individual towns to spend on anything they wanted to. We wanted to reduce people's property taxes, and that's how we did that.
Just to refresh my memory, was this part of the budget?
Yes, that was part of the budget.
Which the Democrats all voted against.
Which every Democrat voted against.
So sometimes they like to take credit, I've noticed. Some of them like to take credit for things that we accomplished and that they voted against, and we all see it on social media. I'm like, wait a minute, you voted against that. Why are you taking credit for that? It's
Well, they're saying we haven't done anything to reduce property taxes, and I mean that's just an outright falsehood, because if you add up everything that we sent back to I don't have a complete list of everything, but everything that we sent back to the municipalities in the cities, it was close to $400 million. And one of the bills we just voted on a couple of weeks ago sent back another $66 million in bridge and road repairs, which will be going back. I can't remember how much Merrimack was getting, but by the size, you're probably getting an extra $700,000-800,000 out of that for bridge and roads. So we've sent that much money back to the city and towns, and all that should go to property tax relief.
Now, what is the significance of a rainy day fund? What is it?
Well, obviously, and this is another thing we did. The rainy day fund right now is the highest it's ever been. It's sitting at 257. I think it was
With our tiny majority.
$257 million
Yes.
in the rainy day fund.
That's exactly
And that
it.
is for what the word says, rainy day. So I think when we took it over, the Democrats had brought that down to around $10 million in the rainy day fund.
Ooh, 10 million, from 10 million to
So
257.
we've increased it. Our revenue estimates were, Representative Norm Major, who's been in charge of Ways and Means for years and years and years, is probably the best estimate person in the state when it comes to estimating revenues for our income. And even he was off this year because our revenues right now are close to, I think, by the time we're done with this budget year, we'll be close to $400 million over budget,
No,
over estimates.
can you give me an example of when it would be appropriate to use the money from the rainy day fund?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we probably are going to have to use some of the money from the rainy day fund is the lawsuit that we have that's being filed against the state for the YDC kids that were mistreated there and sexually mistreated.
Oh, yeah.
And that's I'm not sure when that money is going to be spent. Obviously, it's in the hands of the lawyers, the attorneys right now, but that could run $100 million or more.
Wow.
So
Gosh.
instead of having to maybe bond that money or anything else, we have it in the rainy day fund where we can pretty much spend it as we need to spend it, or make a final settlement, however that case goes.
Now, one of the more, I don't want to use the word controversial, but one of the issues that came up that we had some pushback on was the new parking structure.
Yes.
But the old one is falling apart and it's not safe. So I don't understand why some of the House members are complaining about getting a new parking garage.
Well, a little bit of history on that. That was built in 1975, and its tentative lifespan was given to be about 25 to 30 years. So right now we're looking at something that's 47, 48 years old. Last year we put over $1 million just to stabilize it. It's all the metal is rusting. The concrete is literally from the top floor is literally falling down onto the second level, and we've got 2 layers of netting underneath there to catch it so it doesn't hurt somebody or damage some cars.
Wow.
We've been told that we might have, and we'll probably have to put another $1.5 million, $2 million in it just to stabilize it this year. We're told that it might have a lifespan of maybe 3 to 5 years max before it's probably going to be condemned.
So,
We had a chance to move the Attorney General's office. They need approximately 50,000 square feet. The insurance building that's about a mile away from us became vacant. And we had a chance to lease that, and that's 114,000 square feet in there. So we have a chance to lease that and not only use that 50,000 square feet for the Attorney General's office, but maybe put some of the other smaller agency that we have in the state that are in buildings that are close to being condemned themselves, because we have them scattered all over the city of Concord. That was a one-time shot. If we hadn't have moved now and done that, there was no place else we could have put the Attorney General other than building a brand new building, which would have cost us
even more.
4 times as much as what we're doing now. So, as the old saying goes, all of a sudden the stars kind of aligned. And it's going to take us 2.5 to 3 years to put this, to move the Attorney General should be done this year, to tear down the building, get all the design work done, and put the new structure up. And that new structure is going to be somewhere around 500, 550 cars. That hasn't been determined yet, depending on what the architects come up with. The bottom line is, if we hadn't have had this place to move the Attorney General at this point, and that building was, people were already scrambling to, to move into it, to rent it. If we hadn't have done that, we had absolutely no place to move the Attorney General. Thus, we had no place to build a new garage.
Right.
And that was it. And so maybe 3-4 years from now, when Store Street was going to be condemned at some point,
Store Street is where the reps
where
currently.
the reps park,
Yeah.
we would have absolutely no place to put the reps to park.
Well, I don't like to spend money either, and I am a fiscal conservative, but you can't have people dying from being hit by concrete and the structure just falling apart, and it is falling apart. So it has to be done.
This has been looked at for the last 20 years. We knew this was coming, and again, the stars aligned where we're able to. All the pieces fell together.
And it is going to be nicer to have it closer to the State House because a lot of our members are older, and it's hard to walk in the freezing cold.
Yeah, and we'll have obviously handicap parking in there for the members, and there'll also be some places in there for electric cars to be recharged.
Oh, interesting.
Well, that's we've already talked about that because obviously that is the future. And so we're taking all that into consideration. I didn't want to spend the money, but the fact of the matter is, it's something that needed to be done. We couldn't wait another 5 to 10 years to do it.
Right.
Because literally the state representatives that parked there would have no place to park. We would have had to maybe park them across the river and have shuttle buses running back and forth or something like that, which
Yeah.
for $100 a year, at least we can give the representatives a place to park.
Yeah, I agree.
And we do have the extra money now, that came in because of our budget, the over amount of money we came in from the budget, so we can pay for the thing without having to bond it. And I'm a firm believer if they can pay for something, don't charge it.
Right.
Don't take a bond out, or don't delay it or something like that. So if we got the money now, so it only makes sense for the future. I mean, that garage will be good for another 50 years probably.
Nice. So it makes sense to me, and I support it. So let's go over your time in the House. And you were first elected when?
I first came in 91.
1991, and
1991.
then 90, and then you were minority leader before I was in the House.
I became chairman of transportation in 97, and in 2009 and 10, I was a minority leader.
I came in and I was elected in 2010, so my first term was 2011.
Yeah.
And
That's the year that we picked up over 125 seats.
it was nice. We had that supermajority, but we also had all those freshman egos because I think they.
But one of the things that people sometimes don't realize is one of the things that we did back then was this was the first time the Democrats had been in charge in 75 years.
Right.
And in 4 years, they raised or increased or put new 100 new taxes and fees.
Right. That was an issue I ran
100
on.
new taxes and fees.
Yeah.
When they put the budget together for 9 and 10, I had our members on the finance committee put an alternate budget together because I said to them, your budget is going to have us next session $800 million in the red. And it turned out to be $850 million. We were in the red because they did what they usually like to do. They spent money we didn't have. And
Right.
they spent a lot of one-time money, And when the next budget came around, we were sitting on a hole in the budget of $850 million, which that's when, Speaker O'Brien had to reduce the budget so much because of the fact that we were so far in the red because of the overspending.
Yeah, I do remember now about the 850 million in the red, and I remember the shows that I taped that year, and I remember the guests. Let's see, who am I thinking of? Steve Stepanek saying that they used a credit card to pay for a credit card, and that's how they balanced the budget. And I remember that freshman orientation where the Democrat who was in charge of finance or Ways and Means says, we don't know where we're going to get the money from. We write down what we want to do, and then we figure out where we're going to get the money from. And my mouth just dropped open. I'm like, you can't do that with a household budget. How could you do it with the budget for the house?
Well, it's curious. During the committee of conference on the budget, I think it was Thursday night, the budget was supposed to be done by midnight that night. And it was, I think, like 10:30 at night. I think it was if I remember correctly, the director of Department of Revenue Administration come in and said to the Democrats, I just found you $70 million.
Where'd they find it?
Well, that's the curious part. One was the LLC tax, which we repealed, and the other one was that campground tax.
Oh,
The LLC tax was, I think, was $30 million. The campground tax was close to $10 million. And then they just arbitrarily raised the revenue estimates on some of the other departments. Like,
wow.
well, we'll raise this one by $5 million. We'll raise this one. And I remember specifically one of the Democratic members got up on the House floor and said, we've got to figure out what we want to spend before we figure out how much money we got coming in.
Yeah.
So
that's their philosophy.
you can't spend what you don't have, but that's exactly what they did. Mm-hmm. They spent what they didn't have, and that's how we ended up in the mess we were in 11 and 12.
Right. And so that was very hard, and we took a beating in the press for that.
We did, because we had to decrease the budget by, I think, around 10%.
Yeah, across the board, every single department.
Yeah. It was unfortunate, but that was because of the poor management of the Democrats, and I mean that's factual. It's none of that is made up. It's factual. That's what happened.
So in that supermajority, my favorite bill, maybe it was your favorite too, was the parrot bill. We legalized Quaker parrots, one of the top 10 talking birds in the world.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it was my bill, so I remember it.
Okay.
So you must have been on the Rules Committee. Were you on the Rules Committee with?
No, in 11 and 12 I wasn't.
No, I'm just trying to remember who was sitting there. But I had to go before the Rules Committee and get permission to submit a late bill, and everybody except the one Democrat said yes, and she had her glasses down on her nose and looked at me and said no. I'm like, So she didn't like birdies, but it was a feel-good bill. It united the House, and it was a lot of fun. And oh boy, the jokes just lasted for years.
I vaguely remember the parrot bill.
Yes.
That's about all I can remember about it.
When it went to the Senate, Senator Jeb Bradley said that was the best testimony he heard all term. There was a man that even came in with a parrot. And anyway, I don't want to spend any more time on that. Let's talk about the upcoming election. This is an election year. I'm running for re-election. You're running for re-election. What are the top issues this term?
Well, I don't think there's any question. The top issues right now are the absolute disaster that the Democrats in Congress have left us with, especially President Biden.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
the gas prices alone.
Gas prices right now in New Hampshire are $5 plus in most places. Food prices are through the roof. A couple of days ago, I stopped in the grocery store just to pick up some fruit for breakfast and a few other things. And all of a sudden, it was $32, and I had 5 or 6 items. Mm-hmm. I mean, the cost in groceries, the cost of food, but we're looking at $6 plus gasoline a gallon by the end of the summer. And, you know, now the Democrats down there are trying to blame us for it.
Yeah.
Well,
Why? How is it our fault?
First of all,
We
we
didn't
were
vote for
energy
him.
independent
Yes.
under President Trump. And when one of the first things that Biden did when he went in office was cancel the Keystone Pipeline, which obviously had to be built, but that would have eventually, once it was built, helped us out tremendously. And then he canceled all the leases and prevented the oil companies from drilling and leasing. So this is on him. This is his fault alone. And our congressional people did absolutely nothing to stop that. So when they say that they're out to try and help us, baloney. And now what is he doing? From what I read in the paper, he's going to beg to the Saudis to give us more oil. So we could fix this problem, but you're not going to fix the problem with him down there.
No,
And the citizens of this state. And the other thing we got to look at is how much heating oil is going to cost this coming winter, if something isn't done. And I don't believe he's capable of doing it. And I mean, I just got some oil at my house a few weeks ago, and I think it was $5.25 a gallon or something like that. And I got a little bit of a discount, you know, senior discount. But, you know, people are going to be hurting this winter when it's going to cost them $1,000+ to fill up their oil tank.
Right. I don't know if you may recall last year, there was a few of us that went to an energy conference. It was in Vegas, actually. And I was talking with a scientist from Germany, and he was telling me the highest energy prices in the world are in Germany. And he knows so many people that cannot afford to heat their homes, and they just sit and they freeze because they have to decide, well, gee, I can be warm a little bit, or I can buy food. They can't do both. And then Australia is second highest. In the U.S., it's California. California's number one. So it doesn't get, you're not going to freeze to death in California unless you live in the mountains. But you shouldn't have to just choose. I mean, we're supposed to be a first world country, not a third world country.
I mean, it's going to get to the point where I know I saw on the news there not too long ago that up in Northern California, small town called Mendocino, gas prices were just under $10 a gallon.
Oh my God!
And I actually have been to Mendocino, and it's a small coastal town that was originally founded by New England whalers.
So I'm from California, and I know some of the other siders, they're trying to call me a free stater. Well, no, actually. We moved here, and we escaped the People's Republic of California in 1998. We moved here, and I remember seeing on the news, we're going to get new neighbors, and that's when the free staters started coming in. But how could you be against wanting to go live in a free state? I don't understand why they go after the free staters.
I don't either.
Yeah,
I mean,
they want freedom.
If they actually sat down and talked to some of them, you know, I mean, maybe they change their minds, but too many people are closed-minded. But heating oil, gasoline is going to be a real problem. I mean, people are not going to be able to afford. I go to the State House usually 5 days a week. I'm up there. I used to be able to go up there for I'm exactly 50 miles round trip. I used to be able to go up there for about $30 a week in my RAV4 SUV. Now it's costing me close to 80 or 90 bucks a week.
And the per diem does not cover that, does it?
Well, the mileage, we get federal mileage. That's the only thing we get.
Yeah.
So, I mean, whatever was set in January, you know, by the feds, which is, I forget what it is, 59, 60 cents a mile or whatever it is, that hasn't changed. So that no matter how high the gas prices go, we don't get an increase in the federal mileage.
Right, so it actually costs money to be a state rep now.
Yes, above $100 a year that we get paid.
Yes, well, that's before taxes. So it's actually less than that.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's, and I think, you know, a lot of people in New Hampshire don't understand that we are a citizen legislature because the salary of a state representative in New Hampshire is literally $100 a year, and a lot of people are shocked by that.
Right. And then you have
And,
to pay for your own license plate, pay for your badge, pay for your business business card. So, and that pretty much uses up the $100.
And that's the other thing that people are shocked at. They say, well, you get a license plate. And I say, yeah, and I have to pay for that license plate. Even as speaker, I paid for my license plates.
But isn't it cool having a license plate that says speaker on it? Mine says majority whip, and you'd be surprised how many people ask me, what's a whip? I'm like, well, you've heard of Newt Gingrich? Yeah. Well, he was a whip before he was Speaker of the House in Congress. I'm like, oh, well, what do you do? I'm like, well, when people get out of line, I whip them. What do you think? I'm like, okay.
So that's I think that's one of the, probably going back to your original question, is what's on most people's minds right now, is how they're going to heat their house. And it isn't just oil, it's gas too, natural gas.
Yes.
Going through the roof. Propane is going through the roof. And so I think that's, you're talking about, people not being able to turn the heat on. I think what you're going to see is a lot of people having to leave the heat at probably 50, 55, just enough to where they're not going to get, not going to get injured or freeze to death.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be suffering seriously trying to heat their homes and
Yes.
pay for gasoline and pay for the cost of food today, just put food on the table. This is in the hands of the Democrats. They created this, not the Republicans. They created this. This just came out, I think, a couple of days ago, where President Biden is taking credit for what we did in New Hampshire.
Yeah. Do tell.
I mean, I wrote an article, and our majority leader, Jason Osborne, wrote an article. But in this, the title is President Biden's Economic Plan is Working for New Hampshire. So he is taking credit for everything that we have done in the New Hampshire legislature and have the governor signed into law. Mm-hmm. And it's just
But they voted against most of our bills.
They voted against the budget. They voted against all this. It's just incredible, the arrogance that they're taking credit for stuff that they had absolutely nothing to do with. It's very sad. They're taking credit for the unemployment rate falls. It's just running through here is just I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it takes a lot of gall to take credit for something you had nothing to do with, and in fact what your policies are causing the exact opposite of what we've accomplished in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the workforce is an issue as well. There's just so many. It just seems like people don't want to work. It's like, and I feel like I need to thank everybody who is working. We have longer waits. There's not enough employees everywhere you go. And this was a problem for a while because John Mata, you must know him. He owns Dunkin' Donuts. I had him on the show once, and this was before COVID, and he was saying, I'm having trouble getting people to want to work. They, I don't know why. And it's just, if only things were as good as it was before COVID.
Well, that's an interesting subject because the trades right now, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, auto technicians, they're all starving for people. I mean, they're down. If you talk to any one of them that owns a business, I mean, they're paying whatever they can. They're paying a tremendous amount of incentives, just to get people to come in and work, because they've got the business, but they actually have to turn away business because they can't do it.
Yeah, the other deputy majority leader, Lori Sanborn, owns a business, and I remember her telling me that too. It's like, she giving huge bonuses just to get people to come and work, and it's so hard. It's so hard to get people to work. So what can we do? What's the solution?
Well, and that right there is what's causing prices to go up in restaurants and all that stuff because the amount of bonuses and everything else people are getting, the amount of cost that, let's talk about diesel fuel and how much more it's costing, truck drivers, to get the product to the market now.
Yes.
I mean, and so, I mean, if it used to cost you, and I'll just throw out a figure, $100 to fill your diesel tank, now it's costing you $250 to fill that same tank, in the trailer. So,
I wrote an article about that, but it was too long. They wouldn't print it.
yeah, it's so that, that's just another one of the steps caused by President Biden and his administration for not trying to fix this problem a long time ago before it got to the situation we are in now.
So the number one solution is people need to get out and vote, and they need to vote the R column and put an end to this experiment in socialism.
Yes. Yeah, and that's exactly where President Biden and the Democratic leadership are taking us down. They're taking us down a path of socialism, and if we haven't seen enough countries that have gone down that path and failed, the old saying is if you don't learn from history, you're inclined to repeat it, and that's exactly what they're doing. He was elected as a supposedly moderate Democrat, and now he has gone to the side of Bernie Sanders and Cortez there. Where they have these unbelievable socialistic policies that they want to turn this country into, a Venezuela or something, or Cuba.
Do you happen to know offhand the date of the general election this year? It's November.
Geez, right offhand.
Yeah, offhand, I don't know.
I think for some reason or other the 8th is sticking in my head, but I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, the voters.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It's very
right
important
off
that
the
they
top.
get out. I think September 13th is the
Yeah, I
primary.
think it's September 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a primary. So what happens in the primary is you pick the team to go on to the general election. A lot of people don't go out and vote in the primary. It's like, why? Why wouldn't you want to pick the team?
Yeah. Well, that's something I hope people do come out, because you not only got the primary for state representative, but you've got the primary for the United States Senate seat. You've got the primary for 2 United States congressional seats. You've got the primary for the governor. So all those, top offices have primaries. And then you've got all the state Senate seats. You've got all the state representative seats. And then you've got all the county seats. And most people don't understand how much county government is involved in the overall structure of New Hampshire government. And the fact that we as state representatives actually approve the county budgets.
Right. Yeah, I'm on the executive committee. I took Dick Hinch's spot on that.
And yeah, I'm the vice chairman of the executive committee in Rockingham County.
Yeah, I don't want to be the chair or vice chair. It's painful enough just sitting there and hearing. It's like, no, because I always want to cut things. Like, well, why do you need that? Well, like uniforms. I had to ask the sheriff. I'm like, why do your uniforms cost so much? I mean, what are they made out of? Gold? But then he explained it to me and how it's a good quality and it can take all the washings, whereas what they have now, especially during COVID, they'd have 2 sets and they're just wearing out. So it made sense, and I'm like, okay, so it's an investment. He sold me on that. But then you think about the cost of a vehicle, and everything costs more, and they have all these other things they have to do since COVID they have to have, and it just adds up, and there's just no end in sight. And I'm like, well, if you look at all that, then all of a sudden $1 million doesn't seem like a lot, does it?
I just saw, and I can't remember where it was on the news this morning, there was a town that the police department in the town had already spent their allocation for gas.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, me
what
too,
they've
3
had
weeks
to
ago.
do now is they said what they were doing is all non-emergency calls were going to be taken by the phone until they can, obviously get whatever their system of government is, town council or mayor, to approve some more money for gasoline.
A lot of communities have defunded their police. And,
Yes, and now look what's happening in this country. In some of the major cities, Philadelphia,
Burlington,
Chicago,
Vermont.
and all those cities that have, New York City have stricken millions of dollars from their police departments. Now they're starting to see the disastrous results of that.
Yeah. In Merrimack, we just had Cops and Cones, and I think it was, as of this taping, I think it was a week ago. It was a nice event, Hayward's Ice Cream over by Planet Fitness, and the firemen were there, and the police officers. So, yeah, lots of little kids. We have about 10 minutes left. Is there anything on this sheet that we should cover?
Well, we did some other things, and I know some of it's controversial, but in the budget, we also set up education freedom accounts,
Yes.
and that gives the parents the ability now to send their child to the school of their choice and not to a failing school. And I think that is, we always say it's about the kids. Mm-hmm. And this is truly about the kids, because now I think we're approaching 1,700 or 1,800 kids that have already signed up for it, are going to be able to go to a school of their choosing and get a better education that they would have of where they were at for whatever reason.
But there's still an income cap.
There is
Yes.
an income cap on it, but this gives the average family the ability now to maybe step up and do it where they couldn't do it beforehand. That, to me, freedom of education and being able to send your child to the school that's best for them, mm-hmm. for whatever reason, is absolutely essential to the education of our children.
I agree with you, and I support education freedom accounts, and one size doesn't fit all. And
No,
when we
it
first
does
started
not.
talking about this, there were mothers that came to the State House and they told us stories like their children were being bullied, and they didn't know what to do because they couldn't afford to send them anywhere else. But with the education freedom accounts, they could if they qualified. Well, if they didn't qualify, then they should be able to afford it, we presume. So, I mean, it's not going to kill the public schools, which is what the Democrats are saying, and it's just not true. It hasn't happened, and I don't think anybody's suffered. And we spend X amount of money on each child in school. How is I don't understand how it's going to.
It's not
hurt
going to
them.
it's not going to cause the sky to collapse because of what the Democrats are claiming it's going to do. It's not going to happen.
Right.
The public schools are going to continue, and the people that choose to go into this, take the education freedom accounts avenue, and send their kids to what they feel is, and what probably in most cases is a better school, get a better education. For whatever reason, it's the right thing to do for the kids, and it's the right thing to do, I think, for society. It's helping these kids to get the best education they can.
So to wrap up the show, in our slim majority, we had a lot of amazing accomplishments. We protected the taxpayers and the kids. And is there anywhere that the viewer could go to online to see a list? Is it somewhere?
Well, we, the majority office just put out I think a 6-page document highlighting all the accomplishments that we accomplished over the past 2 years, well, year and a half, 21 and 22 legislature. And it lists everything in here. I think they just put it out yesterday or today, mm-hmm. So I honestly don't know what the account,
if they call the State House, they can get in touch with
if they call the majority office, I'm
Okay,
sure
and
they
ask
could
for
get
the majority office, the list.
Oh, wait a minute, it's here, right here. Fine small letters. House Rep Office at legislature.state.newhampshire.us. If they go to that they should be able to probably get a copy of it.
House Rep Office at leg.state.nh.us.
Yes.
So I always say leg, but it's LEG.
Yeah.
So for legislature, just leg. House Rep Office at leg.state.nh.us. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. Oh, would you like to? Is there anything you want to say to the viewers before we close the show?
Well, I just, say to the viewers that, the Republicans in the past year and a half have done some tremendous things for the citizens in New Hampshire. We've cut your property taxes. We've cut the taxes on businesses, so the businesses can take that profit, being a small business owner myself, can take that profit and invest in new equipment, invest in more workers. All that happens when you put more money into people's pockets and don't take it out and spend it on stuff that doesn't need to be spent on. So this helps every business in the state of New Hampshire by what we did, by cutting the taxes. And I heard that people said, well, you only cut the rooms and meals tax by half a percentage point. And if you just go out and buy a hamburger, it's, a few cents. But if you go out and you, go out in a group, a family group or something like this, then it's going to start adding up if your bill is $300, $400, $500. If you put on a wedding or a wedding reception or something like this, and you're spending thousands of dollars, it's going to add up pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So everything we did, granted, it's going to save you a couple pennies on a hamburger, but look at the big picture and how much it's going to save people overall.
Nice. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for
Well,
being a guest on the show. Thank you for watching. And now if you'll do the honors, Mr. Speaker, you could take that gavel and close the show.
I officially close this show.
Thank you.